Okay, well, welcome. My name is Brianna McWilliam, and I am very happy and grateful to be welcoming Nithyaa here today. Welcome.
Hi, Brianna. I'm glad to meet you too as well.
And Nithyaa has graciously agreed to share her exploration of a question that she wanted to pose around anxiety and its relationship to procrastination, and also if it is a constant, as we move throughout our lives and relationships. So Nithyaa, I'm just going to read a bit of the detail that you provided around your question, and then I will ask if there's anything that you want to add or correct about that. So Nithyaa mentioned that she has not really had any issues with anxiety or insecurity in previous relationships, but in a more current relationship, she's been feeling more anxious. And you mentioned that you felt like it started out normal, but then this partner had a year of being indecisive, unsure, or kind of emotionally disconnected. And that sort of led to you responding by becoming increasingly anxious. And even if everything is going fine, your brain might jump to something he says or does and interpret it in a negative way. The next part you mentioned, which I think is a really wonderful insight, you mentioned that you had a breakthrough about why that might be happening. You noticed that you were procrastinating in your work because you felt like you weren't good at it. And that was a little while ago when struggling to complete a project for your master's degree. Okay. And then procrastination started to creep in. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the relationship between the work that you were doing and how this kind of seemed to happen parallel to also what was going on in the relationship. So I just want to ask you, do I have permission to ask you a couple of direct questions around this?
Yes.
And are you willing to explore creative activities to potentially look at this in a creative and sort of outside of the box way?
Yes, I'm willing to do that.
Okay. Okay. So a couple questions I have for you. What were you studying for your master's?
I was doing computer engineering.
Computer engineering. So are you passionate about computer engineering?
I was
You are.
passionate, but as I progressed through the degree, I think it made me feel like I'm not smart enough.
Okay. And where did the not smart enough voice come from? Is that a voice that you've heard before?
I had never been insecure about my studies, at the least, when I was back in India, when I was doing my undergrad and everything.
Mhm.
But I step into the US, I see people, they're equally smart as me, and I kind of I see that people doing it better, and I was like struggling too hard to complete an assignment or something that I had, and I saw people doing it, and in the first semester, I dropped a course that I was supposed to do because it was too difficult for me. And that fact that I couldn't do that course is still in my head right now as well, that I was not good enough for the degree.
How does your family feel about your pursuits, your education and pursuits? Yeah.
They think that I'm the smartest person in the entire family. Like all my school, I've always been like excelling. I'm the topper in school. I was ranked first in my school, and then I did really well in my, there's another degree there. And then my undergrad, I was also very good. So according to them, I'm just like this, like very smart person.
Am I right in saying that can be a lot of pressure? Yeah. Um, Maybe you're carrying some intergenerational hopes and dreams and expectations. Would that be accurate to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to carry. And um, and then you come into a new environment where your competition is high, right? And so this pressure and these expectations are big. They get even bigger. And so the stakes of both succeeding and failing get bigger, right? And I do find myself thinking, like, if you are to succeed, that's wonderful. But that also means, ooh, now I'm really carrying it. Am I going to carry this for the rest of my life now? Is it going to get bigger? Because so far it just keeps getting bigger. Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that can kind of suck the joy out of something. And it can make it a little difficult to connect with what the actions that you are taking to engage with the varieties of life. In this case, the technology and the engineering, the information that might have been exciting and fun to play with, and the formulas and building things and like, what's that about, right? That's kind of fun to think about. But then it becomes about carrying the weight of intergenerational expectation, hopes, and dreams, and then not measuring up to what these other people can do. And so now what happens is we sort of start to feel, in a way, our mind, our ego mind, our concept of self, our personality starts moving away from the essence of spirit, or you might say from the essence of your soul, or from the essence of your creative, vital life force energy, like that which brings you joy and makes you feel filled up about it. And so now what happens is there's a moving away from, there's this gap that's gets created, so to speak, energetically. And then you attracted a partner into your experience. Am I doing the timeline correctly? Okay.
Mhm.
And you attracted a partner that was also emotionally unavailable, right? Wasn't there with you, that there was this topsy-turvy thing going on.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it functions on a couple levels. In one way, it creates a nice distraction. Oh, my anxiety is going to be about this, and this I don't have to be so anxious about because this can just overshadow the whole thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I guess maybe a reframe I'm offering, or a perspective to play with, is that you might have had a parallel process going on where you attracted someone who was also a bit away from themselves, right? Someone who was a bit ambivalent, someone who maybe had some imposter syndrome about the relationship, someone who was holding themselves back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then inside you kind of had that going on, right? Between you and what you were trying to accomplish. So these two sort of parallel processes are kind of, going on if we zoom out and look at it thematically, right?
Mhm.
And so I find myself wondering, did you then graduate? Like, have you graduated, or are you still doing your studies right now?
Oh, I graduated last December. I graduated.
You graduated last December.
Yeah.
Yes. And how did that feel?
I felt like I didn't really deserve it because I was like, even though I got the degree, I felt like, I couldn't do that course. And there was another thing which I didn't really do well. It felt like I just somehow scraped through and I got the degree and I don't really deserve the master's.
Mhm. So I guess what I'm suggesting is that some of the anxiety about the relationship may stem from actually anxiety about your own deservedness. And I think you're right. I think you're right on point. I think it is connected to the procrastination stuff, right? Because if we are to look at this through, I'm going to reference internal family systems theory. Have you ever heard the term the wounded inner child?
I've heard of it, but not so much.
Not so much. Okay. So basically, it's the idea that we have within us aspects of ourselves that have certain amount of energy sort of constellated around it. And then energy assumes a bit of a personality. So those energies can become kind of constricted and, let's say, split off into your unconscious at a certain age or around a certain circumstance. And it carries the emotions that you were not allowed to feel, or that you didn't allow yourself to feel, because it would stop you from doing what you thought you had to do. But that's not the only part. Then there will be the parts that keep it in check. So then we'll have the managers. And if the part that comes like, oh my God, this is so big, I don't know if I like this anymore, it's sucking the joy out of, but I can't quit. My family's counting on me. This is what I'm here to do. I've all this study, all this investment I put in, I can't quit now. And this is where the manager comes in. Keep going, keep going. You're in it. You're in it to win it now. Everybody's counting on you. Right. And so but I'm afraid, what if this isn't for me? What if I can't make it? Get down, that, you're messing up the program. Get down there. Right. And then there will be another part but that becomes intolerable because the feeling's there. So then another part, and we call this a firefighter, swoops in and says, oh man, that really sucks, doesn't it? Let's not think about that today. Let's do that next week. You don't have to do it right now. Like, let's binge watch Netflix all night and forget about homework, right? So the firefighter distances you or tries to distract, distance, douse, whatever the anxious feeling is. And the manager also tries to manage it in such a way, but the manager is usually a little more punitive. It's a little more like a little more critical, like trying to keep you on track sort of thing. So sometimes what happens is you end up, and then the managers and the firefighters get mad at each other because they don't agree with the other person's method of organizing the fear or the anxiety. So there's an uproar going on. And when we haven't been working on, let's say, an internal process of teasing through the subtleties of our emotions, it can feel just like a big anxious feeling, right? It just feels like a big feeling. It feels like overwhelm, feels like imposter syndrome. Like, I can't do this. I don't belong here. They're going to find out, And so that becomes kind of it just becomes like a blanket sensation. You could continue doing exactly what you're doing, and I would argue be perfectly happy doing it and trusting and knowing that you do deserve to be there. But it's, in order to arrive at that place, it's creating it's creating clarity around those conversations going on inside of you, and being able to kind of dispel the limiting beliefs that tell you don't belong. So with that, let's stop talking and let's do something fun and hands-on. But I thought maybe we might start just by taking a look at the voice you want to talk to first, and or that wants to talk to you. And then maybe orient ourselves in the observing position and notice what kind of wisdom we can glean from that experience. How does that sound?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Is there a voice that you already have a sense would be, that you want to explore, or that you think would be more receptive to our activity?
I want to explore about this voice that keeps telling, like, if I fail or if I somehow don't make this person love me, that I'm not good enough.
I might ask, what also are your spiritual beliefs?
I didn't have any belief in God in the recent times. I just thought like I was in control of everything, and I somehow tried to control everything. And once I saw that there are some things I cannot control, I want to believe there is some power out there which will make things work. And I just started to get that belief again.
So there's a couple things we can do. We can do a drawing outside and we can pull it in. Or we can start in and we can pull something out. When I say those two things, does your body respond? Do you notice yourself either being like, or then, like, do you notice yourself having a sort of like, that sounds better or worse?
I think drawing something and then pulling it in.
Okay, so we can
That's
go from,
something
yeah, so from the outside in. All right. So in that case, then we're curious about the urgency. We're curious about the self-validation. Where is this gap? Why is this gap existing? And how can I close this gap between me and me? So I might have you, we're not going to get into a deep meditative state, but I might have you just close your eyes and take a breath. And just drop the question into your body. Where does this urgency exist in the landscape of my body? And it's okay if you don't sensorially feel it. It could just be your imagination that tells you. But where do you think that urgency exists in your body?
It's right in between my chest.
In between your chest. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And would you say that's the heart space in there, like the heart area? Okay. All right. Okay. So I might invite you to just have an awareness of that. And I'll have you put your hands over your heart. You make contact with that. And we're going to send a gentle invitation to that energy to infuse your hands. So this is an invitation to talk with us. We're not trying to change it. We're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to heal anything right now. We're just going to say hello. It's a gentle witnessing. And we're going to ask that energy to funnel itself into your hands so that we can converse with it outside first. And just you take a breath and just imagine all that energy moving into your hands. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, you've got the floor. All right. So you can open your eyes. And it feels good to do so. And you might rub your hands together. Just feel that energy in your hands. And I invite you to pick up your drawing utensil and you're going to just scribble on the page. This is kind of like a channeled drawing. You're going to just scribble on the page, moving your hand however it feels good to do so, as if your hand is talking to you. And you can continue to do that until it feels good and right to stop. Feels like a lot came up just in doing that alone, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Feeling like there's like so much dumped in me, and I just have to, don't want to feel pressured, want to feel like light, don't feel like I'm feeling light, and I don't know, feels like a knot, and I can't fix it. It's always there. Want to let it out.
Yeah. So this knot is not budging because it thinks that it's serving you in some way. And I think we got some of the inner child coming up and saying like, it's strangling me. Yes. So I want to express some gratitude for that part, letting itself be known, and for sharing that part with us. I appreciate that. On your drawing there, on your scribble, in the same way that we might look at shapes in the clouds, do you see any shape pop out at you?
Feels like there's this tornado swirling.
Would you mind holding up to the screen so I can see your image?
Yeah.
A lot of intensity. I can see the pressure there. Yeah. I don't feel like we need to pull it in because I think it came out. Like, I think it really emerged for you. So we can have a conversation with this now. This is what I call non-dominant dialogues. And what I might have you do with the writing hand, whichever hand you use to write with, I might have you write down a few simple questions, and then we will answer them with your non-dominant writing hand. So the first one, let's just say, is what is your name? And then with your non-dominant hand, you might try responding. And what came through for you?
Loser is what came to my head first.
So the name is Loser. Yeah. Okay. Nice to meet you, Loser. Thank you for sharing that with us. So the next question might be, what do you want?
I want to feel loved.
Yeah. How can we do that? How can we show you that love?
See all of me and still love me.
Mm-hmm. So are there parts of you that are unseen at this time? Yeah.
Not by people. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily going to dig too deep because that's your private space, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're getting a sense of direction in that there are parts of you that feel unseen and maybe unloved and unaccepted. And there might be a part of you that doesn't allow that to happen because maybe it interferes with what you think you should be doing. And of course, what you think you should be doing is maintaining your connections in the way that your obligations and so on and so forth. So this is where the attachment stuff comes in. If I am who I am and what I want to be, and if I let all these unseen parts of myself be seen, I'm going to lose my attachments. I'm going to lose my people. I'm going to lose my partner. I'm going to be alone. So the heart, if we look at this with energetically speaking, the heart is about self-love and acceptance. And the shadow aspects are grief and codependency. And it sounds like there are some fears of loss that maybe exist there for you. And you're sort of between a rock and a hard place. Either you lose yourself, or you lose because there's parts of you that aren't acceptable, or you lose these connections. I'm not saying that there's an answer that I have, a therefore thing that I have for you here today. I believe that those wisdoms and those knowings are going to emerge for you as you continue this process, because you're here, you're having this conversation with me. You took the course that I offered, right?
Yeah.
So there is a part of you, well, even while all of this is going on, there is a part of you that's like, but I'm working towards being seen, but I'm working towards accepting these parts, but I'm working towards believing that it doesn't have to be this or that. I can honor my family and I can do all the things that help me stay connected, and I get to be connected to and have all these other parts of myself, right? So that story, like, that story is the one that I see emerging in you. And your ability to even be on this call and to touch your heart and have the feeling come up and have the conversation with what comes up. That's all that first leg of that journey, right? This is all on a very experiential level, opening up and creating spaciousness for these possibilities to occur. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to connect with you. How's all of this landing with you? How are you feeling and what are you noticing?
There's a part of me which is like, will this even happen, or if I'm just gonna be this way? So.
And that part I would encourage you to continue talking to. I will say too, in our conversation, I think you had more than one part come in. You had the pressure itself, and then you had the part that struggles with the pressure. So the pressure itself came through, but then the part that struggles also came up. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes that part is so deeply buried and pushed out that it takes several calls like this before we're even allowed near it, right? So to me, that lets me know that, oh, you're pretty far along for that piece to be like, uh-oh, I'm coming up and I'm having my say, right? This pressure is intolerable. So, this is, you're further along probably than you realize. I guess I just want to offer that.
Okay.
So I wanted to do this with you so that you have a process by which you might be able to converse with these different parts. And so I gave you 3 questions to play with, but I would, there are others too. So if I were to give you like an assignment, so to speak, right?
Okay.
I might say, the drawing we created today, maybe you ask it a few more questions, they could be questions that relate to your own questions, like, where do you come from? How, what if you didn't have to do that job? What if you didn't have to put so much pressure on me? What would you rather be doing? If I knew how to do this without you, how would you be contributing to my life? This is one question I might have you ask while we're on the call together. Ask your loser tornado, how old does it think you are?
15.
15. So that's your second assignment. Who were you at 15? What was going on in your life when you were 15? What were the pressures that you were experiencing? Were there any parts of yourself that you had to hide away, or that you weren't able to expand and explore and, push that you might have otherwise, right? So sometimes these parts think that you are still that age. And so they're serving you because usually around that age you needed them. So part of this process is also a convincing that I'm not 15 anymore and I have all these other resources, and I really would rather you contribute what you can to our vision moving forward rather than to the typical time I went to back then, right? So I think that's probably enough to start with. But it is a repeatable process. This is a repeatable process that you can use. If you feel something come up, I'm going to find it in my body. I'm going to connect with it. I'm going to pull it into my hands. I'm just going to scribble it on the page. I'm going to look for whatever forms want me to find it. And I'm going to just dialogue with it. Now, this is the other thing we can do, which I didn't think you needed today, but you could do, is you can also eventually close your eyes, pull the image in and drop it down and notice where it goes in your body. And then you can ask these questions in a meditative state. And sometimes that comes up with different things because in the inner space, it's always moving, right? The images change, the things come in, it's a little more dimensional, but the writing makes it very clear and contained initially. Yeah. How are you feeling now? I want to just find out where you're at.
I'm feeling like there's some part of me that's a little free.
A little free, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And these exercises, each time that widens a little, gets a little bigger. Yeah. 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 So do you feel like this is something you might be able to utilize moving forward?
Yeah, this definitely helps.
Yeah, good. Okay. So with that, I may bring our conversation to a close. Is there anything else any questions or thoughts that you wanted to share or ask before we end our chat here together?
I just wanted to say thank you. This part about the age, that the moment you asked age, it just flashed like 15, and I didn't know that there's a part in me that would be stuck at 15.
Mm,
And that was very eye-opening for me.
okay, good. I'm glad you got that insight. And you never know, that may be enough for you to unravel this tornado ball of string.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for joining me and for
Thank you.
sharing your process. I really appreciate it. And you are in the student group. So if you ever have any other questions, you can, or insights even after this call, you can also add them to the Facebook group and tag me and I will respond to that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brianna.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.